In April 2026, 4 astronauts flew around the moon, going deeper into space than any Apollo crew ever did. It was a flyby, no landing, just a lap around our nearest neighbor. 6 weeks later, NASA stood up in Washington and said something much bigger. They're not just going back to the moon, they're going to build a base there, a permanent one, hundreds of square miles of it. This is the plan to turn the moon into humanity's second home. So why the South Pole? Why not the flat, sunny plains where Apollo landed? Water. For billions of years, the floors of craters near the lunar South Pole have never seen sunlight. Temperatures there stay below -200 degrees Celsius, cold enough to trap ice for eons. Scientists believe there could be enormous reserves of frozen water hiding in that permanent darkness. Water means drinking water for astronauts. It means oxygen to breathe. And split into hydrogen and oxygen, it means rocket fuel, made on the moon, for missions headed even farther out, to Mars. That's the prize. And in May 2026, NASA finally showed the world how they plan to go get it. At a NASA headquarters event, moonbase program manager Carlos Garcia Galan laid out the vision in one sentence: a lunar outpost, spanning hundreds of square miles, built up piece by piece toward one goal: a permanent human presence on the moon. To get started, NASA handed out roughly $1 billion in contracts to 4 companies. Blue Origin, Jeff Bezos' space company, will build landers to deliver equipment to the surface near a site called the Shackleton Connecting Ridge, right at the edge of that permanently shadowed ice. Astrolab and Lunar Outpost are building the moon buggies, pressurized rovers. Astronauts will actually drive across the surface. And Firefly Aerospace, which successfully landed on the moon in 2025, will deliver the first scouts, a fleet of hopping drones nicknamed Moonfall, designed to leap across the terrain and map out the base's perimeter before any human sets foot there. The first of these missions is targeted to launch as early as autumn 2026, just months from now. This isn't cheap. NASA says it will invest around $20 billion over 7 years, spread across dozens of missions, built together with commercial and international partners. The plan unfolds in 3 phases. Phase 1, happening right now. Uncrewed landers, rovers, and drones survey the terrain and test the technology. No astronauts yet, just robots doing reconnaissance. Phase 2 arrives with Artemis 3, targeted for 2027. That mission will test something NASA has never done before: docking the Orion capsule in orbit with the lunar landers built by Blue Origin and SpaceX. Then, Artemis 4. As early as 2028, astronauts land at the South Pole and begin living there for real, kicking off the second phase of construction: permanent infrastructure, including something NASA has never built off-world before: a power grid, and not solar panels. Because the South Pole spends long stretches in total darkness, NASA is turning to nuclear power, radioisotope generators at first, then eventually a full nuclear reactor, to keep the base running through months of lunar night. Oh, what does a moon base actually look like day to day? Picture a cluster of habitat modules clustered near the crater rim. Astronauts drive out in pressurized rovers, vehicles you can live inside for days at a time, not just golf carts like Apollo used. Robotic drones patrol the perimeter, relaying data back to Earth. Communication and navigation satellites orbit overhead, giving the base internet-like connectivity. Early missions will only last a few weeks. But as the base camp grows, NASA's goal, first outlined years earlier under the Artemis base camp concept, is for crews to stay on the surface for up to 2 months at a stretch. It's not a domed city with streets and greenhouses. Not yet. Think of it more like Antarctica's McMurdo Station, a working research outpost, rugged and functional, that grows a little more permanent with every mission. It's worth being honest, ambitious NASA plans have missed deadlines before. This exact program traces back to an earlier version that once promised a base camp by 2024. That didn't happen. The biggest risk this time, according to program officials, is simply cadence. Can NASA and its partners actually launch this many missions this fast? The first phase alone calls for 24 launches by 2028, and the next several Artemis missions still depend on NASA's SLS rocket, whose cost and schedule have drawn criticism for years. Then there's money. $20 billion is a serious commitment, one that depends on Congress continuing to fund it, year after year, administration after administration. Strip away the hardware, and here's the real story. For the first time since the Apollo era, a space agency isn't just planning a visit to the moon, it's planning to stay. A working lunar base means learning how to mine water, generate power, and survive months of darkness off-world. All skills NASA says are rehearsals for the real target, Mars. If this timeline holds, within the next decade there could be people living and working on the moon continuously. Not as tourists, but as residents of humanity's first outpost beyond Earth. NASA calls it a moonbase. Give it a few more decades, and base might just become city. If you want to see how this compares to China and Russia's own lunar base plans, that video's right here. Subscribe for more space coverage. Thanks for watching.